Finally, we've made it to the year 2025. This year is a big deal because it ends in a multiple of 5.
What?
There's tons of new games releasing, and maybe it's time to turn over a new leaf. You know, move on from predatory gacha games and find something new in life, get a hobby, make some new friends. Maybe it's time I take a step away from Wuthering Waves. Oh god damn it. Anime games have gone through a sort of renaissance, where they've gained a sense of artistic integrity and cultivated a more mainstream following than ever before. Maybe at some point we'll even get to an anime industrial revolution, where anime games will finally be available on Xbox. Wuthering Waves is no exception to this, but one thing that separates it from the other anime gacha games is that it had an incredibly rough launch. I've gone into details in previous videos about it, but to sum it up, a lot of people who downloaded it couldn't even play the game. There was a sea of optimization issues that made it unplayable, as well as other game-breaking bugs that prevented story progression. And that is unacceptable for the launch of any game, no matter how many players it actually affects. Every patch since then, though, they've fixed a lot of the issues, and I'm gonna be honest, at this point in time, if you can't play it on your phone, then your phone might just be old. I'm sorry, I don't really know what else to tell you. When you leave a bad impression on the internet, usually they don't forget it. This example's a bit old, but think about No Man's Sky, a game that overpromised and underdelivered. The game is actually great now, I've played it a lot and got my money's worth, but even with the community vouching for it now, it will never live up to what it could have been, had they just delivered that full experience on launch. People don't forget, and oftentimes they also don't forgive either. However, there are rare cases in games like Final Fantasy XIV where the developers tore the game open and surgically removed everything bad and just replaced it with something good, and continued to build on it. And over the past 10 years, FF14's player base has steadily grown, and after experiencing the beta version of 2.0 myself, I believe Wuthering Waves can do the exact same thing. Since their catastrophic launch, Kernel Games has done nothing but improve, and I don't mean improve as in, oh, they added a small quality of life thing that had no reason to not be in the base game to begin with. I mean literally adding entirely new systems that have the potential to fundamentally alter gameplay in the long term. And 2.0 is easily their biggest update yet. The question is Wuthering Waves worth playing in 2025?
The product finally perfected.
Version 2.0 introduces an entirely new region called Rinascita, which I think is based on Italy, but there is a surprisingly low amount of pasta, so I don't really know if I believe it. And when I started playing the new region, I was playing with music off, and let me tell you, that was probably my single biggest mistake. This is going to sound like insanely high praise, but the music in Rinascita is truly incredible. I'm not talking about the silly carnival and Greatest Showman stuff they were showing on the live stream, I'm talking about the environmental music and live performances from echoes in the city, which, oh, by the way, these guys decided to make friends with the Pokemon instead of capturing them. PETA would be so proud. The music in town this expansion genuinely sounds like something out of Free Run. Half of it can be chalked up to the instrumentation, but the other half is how everything flows as if it's representative of adventurers taking a walk through the bustling city. Unlike 1.0 where the music is sort of just 2.0 makes you feel like you're a part of a bigger story. That's without mentioning the combat music, which some of it reminds me of the Blood and Wine DLC from The Witcher 3. Peak game, by the way, every single one of you should play it. I don't care how old that game is, it's incredible. I was expecting more of a stereotypically Italian or French sound, but they delivered beyond that and made it less specific to one region of Europe and more encapsulating of a high fantasy journey. Love that, might just be me, but I really love that. Some people think I'm way too hyperfixated on the music. I think I just have artism. But of course, music is not all this place has to offer. But before I get into my next bit, I need to give you a little bit of a hot take. One of my biggest gripes with Wuthering Waves is the combat.
Oh my god, okay, it's happening.
Kind of. Let me explain. Wuthering Waves solo combat is too good for the content that they actually have in the game, at least in reference to 1.0 specifically. All of the bosses and their hologram versions are able to be overcome with a little bit of practice and character building. What sucks, in my opinion, is that the main endgame is a team-based DPS check. With the exception of the Fallacy of No Return, before Rinascita, you could basically easy clear most of, if not all of the floors of the endgame mode, Tower of Adversity, with a proper team and rotation, which, don't get me wrong, isn't necessarily all that bad of a thing, and it's already more than some other gacha games, but I don't feel like it shows off everything that you can do in this game. At the moment, for endgame, parry feels optional, while in the beginning of the game, it was made out to be a crucial part of the gameplay. Wuthering Waves actually has excellent combat, but doesn't have the content to showcase that excellence. And I honestly just blame the boss design for that, since most bosses can be solved pretty easily with a little bit of effort. That's how the game was in 1.x. However, for the new bosses, they decided to obliterate your f***ing head. Waves. There's a lot of new bosses and holograms, and they let you do a lot more with Wuthering Waves' combat. They didn't fix the issue I had with Endgame entirely. As I've said on my stream at twitch.tv/Brax, I think they should introduce a weekly hologram fight or a solo hologram fight that's meant as a challenge content for when you've beaten everything, since that would let you showcase skill expression instead of spreadsheet expression. But as far as actual designs go in 2.0, they're great, and the fights definitely reflect that. They make the combat in Wuthering Waves feel a lot more meaningful, like your decisions in dodging and parrying carry a lot more weight than before. This was first seen with Fallacy of No Return, where you would actually have multiple phases to the boss fight, and the second phase felt really punishing if you didn't deal with them the right way in phase 1. But in 2.0, they really wanted to show you what they've learned about boss design, and it shows. And when we're talking about new bosses, there's also like a more billion new echoes. And among those echoes are 5 new Sonata effects, which will allow you to build brand new characters and even old ones with more strength than prior. In my opinion, the more sets the better, because that allows you more flexibility in your team building and in your character building. And Kuro also gave us new versions of old boss echoes called Nightmare Echoes, which in a way have an opportunity to buff older characters as well as work with newer ones. And you don't even need to swipe on the game. Incredible. Wow, you really can teach an old monkey new tricks. Also, the new character designs, like me, are pretty sick. I got to play Carlotta and Roxia, the clown, and they're super fun too. I saw Brant in the new trailer, and his model looks even better than the art, which is so crazy to say, but I honestly think a lot of Wuthering Waves characters kind of do that. I love them. I don't really think they're my favorite character designs ever, but it's a much more colorful and vibrant take on characters, and even if some people don't like that, if nothing else, I think it makes the new characters really stand out. And Carlotta is voiced by Kana Ueda, so she will be getting a 6. Vibrance seems to be the new thing Kuro is going for in Renacida, because the overworld is beautiful. It's not overly saturated to where it burns your eyes, but it's enough to really pull you in. And there's also a new feature they're calling Immersion Mode, which cleans up your interface a lot. I think one of the biggest gripes I heard in Wuthering Waves 1.0 was that it was way too gray and monotone, and honestly not all that immersive. And I'll be honest, that's not always a bad thing if it's for style points, but it definitely appeals to less people overall. Another complaint was the writing of 1.0, and I kind of agree. I think the 1.0 writing of Wuthering Waves left a lot to be desired. There was a lot of made-up terms and yapping that didn't really do the best job of pulling someone new into the world. Even some of the biggest Wuwa glazers can agree that the writing wasn't the most inviting. Maybe this is a hot take, but I actually think that 1.3 fixed a lot of the issues with the writing. They spent a lot more time showing the story rather than telling, and 1.4 continued on that a fair bit. So if you want my full, honest opinion on that, I kind of think the problem was already solved, but 2.0 is also very nice. I don't want to spoil 2.0's main story, but all I'll say is that it's much better handled than 1.0. In fact, I think that's one thing that kind of bums me out, is that so many people quit in 1.0 due to a poor launch experience, because 2.0 absolutely blew me away with its presentation and all the changes Kuro Games made to Wuthering Waves. The changes to boss design, the world, the colors, the character designs, the narrative, the options for gearing, the music, the quality of life, and overall immersion have massively improved. And if this was the version of the game that released in 1.0, it would easily be twice as popular of a game. Honestly, probably even more than that. So, is Wuthering Waves worth playing in 2025? Well, that kind of depends on the game that you like, but if you like anime games where devs actually listen, it's probably the closest you're gonna get. There are so many games that don't feel like they get better with every patch, or every little improvement passes by and doesn't really affect the game in a meaningful way in the long term. Everything Kuro Games has done up till now, though, feels like a huge improvement, and in my opinion, no matter if you're new or a returner, it's 100% worth playing Wuthering Waves in 2025. The game is in the best state it's ever been, and Renacida has been absolutely incredible. I think I've said incredible like 10 times in this video. I really need a bigger vocabulary. Oh, and the game is available on PlayStation now, so PS5 players, congrats, you're out of jail. Also, if you come back, you can literally just start the 2.0 quest after completing Chapter 1 Act 3, so you don't actually have to be that far in. I think that's like right before you meet a certain guy that lost his zipper. It's within like the first 2 hours of the game. Also, if you regret your rover decision, you can swap between male and female rover now. They also added being able to craft anywhere, and there's some skins in the game now. Sorry, I just had a list of everything to talk about, and I didn't really know where to put those. You know what they say, better late than never.